Welcome to the podcast. We talk about all the things that are hidden in the shadows. This is Isaac.
This is Megan.
And on this playback episode, flashback,
Playback,
remix, something or the other, we're reflecting back onto one of our earliest episodes ever. And in fact, we've been doing this for almost 2 years, right?
Yeah, over 2 years. Close to 3. No, 3 years. No, July will be 3 years.
Yeah. Some of our earliest episodes that we ever recorded don't have the best recording. They're not the best quality. But some people probably don't go that far back in our catalog unless you want to go back that far. But one of the most infamous things that we ever talk about, that I bring up on consistent interviews and stuff like that, is my ranch. The family ranch that I grew up on when I was a kid. And the ranch that I experienced everything underneath the tree when it comes to paranormal. Except for the gnome that was here. But no, from cryptids, from ghosts, from possible demon things, from an alien sighting, stuff like that. Everything happened to me there. And I've talked about it in different stories, and ghost stories 1 through 4. And not just myself has experienced things in the ranch. My family has, and even friends I've had over at certain times have experienced at this ranch. And we thought about going back to it, maybe reflecting on some old stories, but along with talking about the town that this ranch is in. My town that I grew up in back when I was in high school. We'll say this, from elementary school to high school, I went in this town. So basically I grew up in this town, the town of Blanco, Texas, which is about an hour north of San Antonio, Texas, about 30 minutes away from Spring Branch, where me and you lived for a good period of time.
Yeah.
It was considered a pit stop town for the longest time, which is true because there was only one stoplight in town. When I left, there was 2. We got one of our first fast food places, I think.
Oh my God, you
What?
almost said fat food.
Fat food? Well, what is fat food? Fast food place ever, which was Sonic. 3 years after I graduated, everyone was excited about it. That's how fucking small this town was. You want to know how small this town was? My graduating class was 86 people, right? Some people, have 86 friends within their high school class, right? No. My entire town population was 1,500. Yeah, I say tiny town. Everybody knew everybody. But there are I want to go over some stories from the ranch. And plus, Megan is going to share a lot of haunting historical information of stuff that I don't even know about for Blanco. Now, I've heard things, but in my youth, I never was that concerned with the paranormal unless it was talked about my ranch. Otherwise, I really didn't ask anybody the ghost stories or what happened to the haunting stuff. But people would always ask me, "Hey, Isaac, was it true?" Blah, 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 right? And I would tell them one of my experiences, and they always freaked out. And
I think it's also important to note another reason why we're doing this episode is because our Halloween episode this year,
which is a little premature from now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a little premature, but it's just so that everybody can listen to it, and then we can also have it out there so that you guys know more of the backstory. So when we say we're going to this ranch, because we're going back to Texas to see family, and we're definitely making it a pit stop there. Because, of course, one of the things that I always say, especially in prior episodes, everybody has that, regularly experiences the paranormal, has that one house that at some point during their life that always had weird stuff. Not everybody, but majority of a lot of people that have experienced the paranormal has that one house that's just had an eerie vibe or whatever. And I've always had experiences at every house I've kind of lived at, but the most intense ones was at the Spring Branch house, which we did an episode on. So not only are we doing the Halloween episode, but we also thought it would be good to do Isaac's, because the stories are kind of scattered amongst different episodes too. So to have it all coincide in one spot. I don't know what these accents are that keep coming out. Sorry. Apologize in advance.
One of the earliest memories. Now, I have a very early memory that's kind of brief, but it's not that important. But one of the earliest memories I have of experiencing anything scary was with my brothers. I have 2 younger brothers. And I say younger, but they're like a year and a half younger than me, so it's not that far. when we were kids, we were always told stories by our uncles, my dad's brothers, and stuff like that, who lived on the ranch when they were young, about this house that was on the other side of our property line behind barbed wire fence, and it went basically an open field, and this burnt down building looked like a house essentially, but it was so far away you couldn't really tell what it was. Now, we were told that a witch lives there when we were kids. My assumption when I was young was my uncles were telling me that so we don't go in there, right? Now, me and my brothers snuck underneath the fence and started walking toward this house thinking, see what's inside. We don't get more than 30 yards away from the house and we hear, like your typical cartoon witch laugh, loud enough that all three of us heard it and hauled ass back to the house. Like fucking jumped over the fence, like we're hurtling.
God.
And the strange thing is, now that I thought back to it, it's like, wait, that could have been someone playing a joke on us. But the thing is, no one was out there. No one lived in the area where that house was. And no one was out in the ranch area to even try to pull a joke like that. So that's what freaked me out when I thought about it later. Now, several years later, I think I was in high school, a freshman, and Gabe was my second youngest brother, my youngest brother. They were like middle school. And it was summer, and we were basically staying up late, nothing to do, and we decided, hey, let's go get our video camera, which was one of those old 90s ones, the big ones you carry on your shoulders. Let's go record at night and see if we can see anything at the house that we saw when we were younger, right? So I think we went outside. It was night. It's like maybe like 1 or 2 in the morning. I think my youngest brother was handling the camera, so it's worse quality than Blair Witch. And I think I picked up an axe and my brother picked up a machete because just in case we run into anything, right? My second youngest brother was a little further down the road because you have to go down a dirt road. And if you imagine walking down a dirt road, the fence is to your left and then everything else ranch-wise is to your right. Big old opening, everything like that. So that fence to your left, across that fence is where that house is that we were told the witch lives and all that. Now, we're walking down the dirt road and my second youngest brother gets further ahead of me. And what's interesting about this area where the house is that there's a tree line area that's about a quarter of the way before it breaks into an opening area where you can see the house. So if you walk further, you're basically, your line of sight's blocked. The trees are blocking your line of sight until you get past them, then you can see the house on the other side of the fence. So my second youngest brother, he's farther down there. And me and my youngest brother are walking toward there. I remember I looked at the camera and I said something stupid. I can't remember, like something like, this is going to be better than Blair Witch or something like that. I don't know. Yeah. I was a freshman in high school, whatever. And my second youngest brother is staring out into the field. And I go, Gabe, what's going on? And he just looks and points. And I get down way so I can see what it is. And all I saw was a white figure, like a man, stand up from like he was kneeling in the tall grass, stands up, turn around, and just walk off into the darkness and disappearing. Which we all, of course, got freaked out. And my youngest brother, he didn't see nothing. And he's like, what's going on? What's going on? Why are you running? Why are you running? And me and Gabe were telling him, we saw a white guy out there. Oh, my God. It was all pale like a ghost. Yeah, we didn't go out at night from then on. Now, something that didn't happen to me, but happened to my friends. In high school, I made friends with a couple of guys. And we were staying over at one of my friends' house. My friend Steven's house. And my friend Matt was with us as well. And Steven asked me, hey, do you want to spend a night over? And it was Saturday. And I remember we had church the next day. Fun fact, at the time, I was playing in a praise band. It's kind of where I learned to play bass. But that's besides the point. I would say, no, I need to go home and get my stuff, at least a change of clothes and my stuff for the play, because it's at the house. I was like, oh, I'll just take you back there. We'll go pick it up. We'll come back to the house. So I was like, okay, I can ask my mom too. So he takes me out there, and I've told both Matt and Steven all my scary stories from the ranch. They know well of everything that's ever happened. From everything that I've told on this podcast, right? We're driving over there, and we park up to the house, and I noticed at my place, the porch light's off, so it's just darkness out there. And I was like, oh, I guess my mom forgot to turn the porch light on. And me and Steven get out. Mind you, I was riding in the back, and Matt was riding shotgun. Of course, Steven was driving because it was his car. And we get out, and Matt's staying in the car. I'm like, you want to come in? And it's like, oh, no, I'm fine out here. It's like, I looked at him. Are you sure you want to stay out here? It's like, yeah, I'm cool. Like, are you sure? We both looked at him like that. I was like, all right. Because they know the stories. So we go inside. I remember I talked to my mom. I asked her, like, oh, yeah, it's fine, whatever. And I went to my room. I think my brother was in there playing guitar. And we just talked for maybe 5 minutes, maybe less. Steven and my brother were talking for like maybe 5 minutes while I was packing out my stuff, grabbed the base, and then we just kind of went out. And as we were walking out the door, I remembered, oh, porch light turned on. Let me turn it on so I'm not walking in darkness. So I turned the light on and we walked to the car. And now we get back to the car, and Matt is now in the back seat with a freaked out look on his face. Like, what the hell's going on? And he yells at us, get in the car. Like, what? Get in the fucking car right now. Like, all right, well, dude. And I remember I threw my stuff in the trunk. We got in. As we're driving away, he tells us while we're in the house, no more than maybe 30 seconds while we're in the house, he hears like a hoof stomp, as he describes it, in the distance. And then it was right next to the car, which he looked around and freaked him out. He didn't see anything. And then it was off in the distance. Then next to the car. Then off in the distance. Then next to the car. He was getting freaked out because he couldn't see anything. He kept looking around, trying to see where it's coming from, thinking it might be a horse or something or walking around out here. He didn't see anything. And he started getting freaked out. So he jumped in the back seat so he could see everything at perfect, so nothing's behind him, essentially. He started getting freaked out to a point where he jumped down underneath the seat, so he can't know nothing can see him in case something is getting close. And while he's down there, he hears like a tink, like a long claw scratching into the side of Steven's car. And he said he was about to start slamming the horn when I turned the porch light on. When the porch light came on, it all stopped, and when we came out there, that's when he was all freaked out. And funny thing is, as he's telling the story, as we're driving back into town, because mind you, where my ranch was versus in town was about, I want to say about 10 miles out of town. So it was about maybe a 15-minute drive from the ranch to in town. So I went out in the boonies, essentially, right? No stoplights, no street lamps, right? Barely anybody lived out there, just wilderness and road. And as we're driving, all the deer, and anyone who's lived in the country knows that you probably hit deer more than you would shoot them just driving out there. But all the deer were standing on the side of the road watching us drive by. Not getting in front of, not running across the road like normal deer do. They were just standing and they were just watching us drive by. That was eerie because remember Steven said, why are the deer watching us leave?
Oh my gosh. I could just imagine. Ugh.
Yeah, and we get back to the house and we're getting inside. I think Steven's sister or something was there and he was telling a story. Me and Matt were looking at the car to see if there was any scratches. And we yelled, Steven, get out of here. And we noticed almost like someone had like a safety pin, that thin of a scratch from one end all the way to the other, scratching his car. And after that, yeah, they didn't come to the ranch anymore after that because the second time, this is, again, shit didn't happen to me. This is what was told to me. I think it was a senior year of high school. And Steven, mind you, I didn't have a car the whole entire time. So anytime my friends wanted me to go hang out with them, I was like, yeah, I can. Just give me a ride home or let me stay at your place until next day because I went that. I forgot what the reason was, but Steven had to drop me off at home. And it was at nighttime, which he didn't want to fucking do.
Oh my God.
But he had to because we stayed out, I guess, later than we had to. So he drops me off. I remember as he dropped, he's like, get out of the fucking car. I want to up and leave already. I was like, all right, dude, see you later. And he was driving. Now, the way, if you could imagine it, the way the road works to my ranch is you drive straight, you get on the highway, you make a right. And you drive straight down a dirt road, single lane dirt road that goes about, I want to say 100 yards. And then it makes a perfect right angle turn. And you go down that for maybe 30, 40 yards. And then you make another left angle turn, goes into the opening area of my ranch. And then it's like a crossroads. You go left, you go to my grandparents, you go right, you go up to my place. But in that area that's not in our fenced-in road area, because both sides are fenced in, there's a giant open field. Say if you're driving towards the house, it'd be on your right. So as you're leaving, it's on your left. Giant open field, nothing but tall grass and woods, right? And it's opened enough that if the moon was shining on that night, you would see that whole field light up and see if anyone was there. That's important. Because when Steven was leaving after dropping me off, and he was making that left angle turn, and then he's now the straightaway to the highway, he notices, not meaning to look, but just glances into the field.
Oh no, don't look at the field.
He sees a white figure standing in the field watching him. The same white figure I described to him when I was a kid. He says I owed him money for his shocks because he hauled ass down a dirt road. Mind you, you need to take this road easy because there's a lot of potholes and bumps and stuff. It wasn't the best taken care of. We tried to repair it many times. But his car was not meant for off-road, let's say that, right? It was like a 82 Lincoln.
Yeah.
A teenager car in a poor town, right? Anyway, hauls ass down the road, like hitting the bumps as hard as he can. He probably ruined his shocks, so he was saying. But as soon as he saw it, he freaked. He like shot down. Because the next day I saw him at school. I think I said he's telling me about it. And like, oh, I'm never going back there ever again. I don't give a shit. And you don't get a ride. You take it to somebody else. You don't get it from me. Like, I'll drop you off during the day. I'm never going back. But yeah, those are 2 encounters that happened to me. Now, another encounter that didn't happen to me. We'll get into shit that happened to me, but I want to talk about the ones that didn't happen. I made friends with an older guy at the time named Rob. He was, when I was a senior in high school, I wanted to be a pro wrestler. And I wanted to start lifting weights. And there was a guy who went to our church who was a power lifter. He lifted weights and stuff like that. So he would train me and working out and stuff like that. And he strength training and bodybuilding and stuff like that. So that's how I became friends with him. And granted, I think I was 18. He was like 30 something. So he kind of treated me like a uncle or like almost a dad figure sometimes. We go work out late at nights because that's when he gets off work, and we work out. And I work after school, and he would take me home. And that's the way it worked for a guy about good until I think I worked for him in the summertime too. Construction job and stuff like that. And he drops me off one night, and as he's leaving,
so this happened to Rob.
It's happened to Rob.
Oh my god!
Right, and he says he is not 100% sure it was something, but the fact that when he dropped me off another time and it was during the day, he says he never saw that thing again. Tells me it might have been. So he's not 100% sure, but when he dropped me off, he made it out of the ranch without seeing anything. But when you go turn the highway, right, as you're going back into town. You're driving down the highway road, and it's a giant open field. It's a lot of open area, right? I guess it used to be might used for trees don't grow, but it's just tall grass. But there's a dip, like a creek used to be. And I remember this creek because, granted, it's probably dried up now. But when I was a kid, it was flowing enough that you could go swimming in it. And basically when you go down, there's a dip. And when you go down the dip, you go up and you make a left, a very angled turn left, and you go up and it winds and it keeps going up. That first left you take, there's a opening driveway to someone's place that goes up into the hills. I always heard stories that somebody lives like a mansion up there or something like that, but I was never 100% confirmed or not. It might be true. I don't know. That opening dirt area, right? When he said he made that first left, he was turning, like going down into the creek ditch and coming back up and making a left. He noticed the white guy, the white figure, but it looked like he was hunched down on the ground, like if someone was squatting, sitting on their, not sitting on their ass, but I guess how it's a bad example, but like how some people can sit, standing up, like squatting essentially, right?
Oh yeah.
Not like a squat. I guess kind
of like what Killian does.
Yeah, like how little kids when they're basically sitting on their heels essentially. Yeah, they're sitting on their heels, but their head was scrunched down. And all he saw was a person's back, the white figure that I talked about. And it was facing the opposite direction. So all he saw was this thing sitting like that with its back turned to the highway. And Rob saw that as he was driving out of there. And he said, I thought it was a rock when he first glanced at it, but the second he looked at it again, he could see the back, the spine, the bones in the back.
And I can confirm, because I've met Rob before. He is one of those types of people that I feel like the paranormal, it would have to be concrete evidence for him to believe it. And so for him to say hey, something weird happened, that's a lot. That's saying a lot.
Amongst many times of hearing voices and hearing knocks and stuff like that, the most prophetic things I remember happening to me was I used to work overnight, and I remember me and my brother moved out of our parents' place and moved into my grandfather's. We called it a pink building because it was painted pink first, and then became more teal color. I think he repainted it, but it essentially was a 2-story concrete solid apartment style building thing that he built because I have 10 uncles and aunts, so he had 10 kids, and he had to build extra space for them, right? But granted, at the time I was a teenager, they were all grown, moved on, living in other states and stuff like that, have their own families and stuff. So all these rooms were left unavailable. So we made a deal with my grandpa, say, hey, can we live up there? We'll pay rent and stuff like that. And they're like, oh yeah, it's fine. So I took a room and my brother took a room. And we stayed up there and we worked overnight and stuff like that. So kind of we had our independence when we really didn't at the same time. Because we used to use our parents' kitchen for food and washing clothes and stuff like that. So, but one of the times I was sleeping up there, granted I would sleep during the day and wake up at night. So it was my routine for 8 years. But one of the times I remember waking up late at night. Well, it was early morning for me, but late at night for everybody else, about 9 o'clock or so. It's dark outside. And I'm somewhere between awake and asleep. And I see a little girl, all black, like she's a shadow figure, right? But she's in detail. I can see it designed in her dress, a Victorian style dress with lace, but it was all black, like a shadow. And she's hitting my nightstand with her fist, like, wake up, wake up. And then I hear with a very low, evil tone, wake up. And slam, like, wake up. Right? It slammed my nightstand. That instant woke me out of my sleep, and I woke up and I looked. It's scary in its own sense to have that kind of dream. But the scary part is that the bottles on my nightstand, like water bottles, were moving as if someone just hit the nightstand. Like almost like you hit something, they're rattling, they're moving.
Yeah, then that's happened to me multiple times.
Which I told my brother about, because he was off the same day and I was, and I walked into his room, and I was like, I told him what the fuck happened. He's like, oh, you saw her too? And I was like, what the? I saw her. What do you mean you saw her too? He's like, yeah, I saw her at the end of my bed. She was just staring at me one night. Because he said he was waking up in the middle of, or I guess during it would be our day, but his night, and your night, our day. And he said it was like maybe 11 o'clock or midnight, and he opened his eyes and he thought someone was in the room. And he opened his eyes a little more, and he could see like a girl in a Victorian dress, and he blinked his eyes real hard, and she was gone. But he saw who I described. So when I say everything haunted that's ever happened to me in the extremity has happened there when I was young, I mean that. Now, for the alien sighting happened between me and my friend John, who stayed with us in one of the other rooms that were up there.
Talk about the most depressed person I've ever. He literally, I met this guy.
He was a cool dude.
This guy never smiled. Like, he was like, I hate to say it because who knows, maybe he really was depressed or sad, but like, he was just, there was no expression, just like a sad look 24/7.
Yeah, unless we never got any fucking sleep because we were always damn tired and stuff like that. And you always saw us when we were just like getting off work. We're like, we're tired, we don't give a shit, just whatever. But now he lived with us for a little bit. What was cool is that me and him, all three of us, my brother and him, were in a band for like, I don't know, 8 months or so. We played together for a while. We never played a show with that band. We practiced many songs, but never got the show. He was a musician. That's how we became friends. We worked with him and stuff like that. And he said, hey, I got you guys got a place where I can live. And we talked about Grandpa about it. And he never charged him more rent than we charged him. But, you know, of course, he didn't get the family discount. But some of the nights that we get off work early, he would sit on the porch and smoke a cigarette. There was a porch upstairs because all our rooms were upstairs, right? And sitting on the porch upstairs, you had a perfect view into the open field, the same field that Steven saw the white figure standing up, because you had a perfect view of the tree lines and stuff like that. And we were just sitting there talking one time, thinking about music or something, and he looks out and goes, what is that? And I look out and I see what he's looking at. And we see 3 lights, like in a row, moving in a straight line across the sky, which I thought were like jet planes or something, which is a little far out for the Air Force to be out there. But that changed when those 3 lights moved into perfect triangle shape. Like they were in a straight line and they moved to a triangle shape within the same like flight pattern, like within like 1, 2, 3 seconds. They moved. Like I never seen anything move that fast, at least get into that pattern that quickly. And in the triangle shape, they look like the lights get smaller, like they're going up, and they disappear. There has been alien sighting. Now, one of the other, I don't think I've ever mentioned this before. One of the weird alien sightings I remember experiencing could have been alien, could have been ghosts. I'm not 100% sure. One of these nights I came home early. It was like maybe 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, getting off work early. And I was driving home. Imagine you, no street lamps. All you have is the night sky. You only get light out there other than your headlights if there's a full moon. That's it. Me driving, I keep noticing like a blue light behind me, which I assumed was the moon. But I was like, that's really low. And I look at my rearview mirror. It looked like a light orb was floating behind my car, about a good like 10 feet up in the air, following me. And this is the time way before drones were even around for people to use. This is a long time ago. And I kept looking at my rearview mirror. I kept speeding up, and it kept pace with me until I made a turn into a certain, I guess, opening area into another, like, how to describe it, archway. Basically, said this roadway or whatever like that. It was really weird. And I went in there, and then it disappeared. It stopped following. But yeah, that was one of the other alien sightings. But I remember you were telling me that you wanted me to tell these 2 specifically because it happened to. Now, I told stories that happened to my friends, but I'm going to tell you now 2 particular stories that happened to my family. 3 different particular stories happened to my family. When my uncles told me about the witch that lived in that house and stuff like that, I don't know if they're 100% lying or 100% telling the truth about what they were saying, because Javier told me a story. He's my youngest uncle. I have two uncles, but he was the youngest uncle. And he told me a story one time that happened to him when he was a kid. He had to be 12 or 13. And the room that was his when he was young was the same room John stayed in, funny enough. It was a smaller room. But that room is the first, if you're walking up the stairs into the area where our bedrooms were, it'd be the first room on your right. So he had, right when you walk out the door, you instantly turn left, you're right going down the stairs. He said one night he woke up and he felt someone was sitting on his chest. Now, in Mexican legends and lores, the bruja, the witch, right, had the ability, same as in Russian lore, the Baba Yaga, right, had the ability to turn into a chicken or a giant chicken, right? I don't know how that correlates, but it does. And he said he felt this weight sitting on his chest, and maybe he woke up and he saw like an old woman sitting on his chest, like she was like just staring at him, and he shoved her off, and he thought someone broke in, and he started to chase her, right? But what was strange is that when he got down the stairs to chase her, what he saw running away, he only describes as a chicken, like a giant chicken, right? Like he said, like a ostrich-sized, like chicken. And he didn't know, because he was about to chase it, and he stopped, because it wasn't a woman anymore. And it ran into the darkness, into the direction where this burnt house building, where we heard the witch cackle come. Now, was my uncle fucking with me? I don't know. But how everything correlates to that specific spot, I'm inclined to believe some of what he said. Right? But yeah, that's what he told me. Now, that area, that housing area, my house, this house I stayed in when I was living up there, stuff like that, that's not the only areas that ranches ever got affected. My cousin Val, who lived about 100 yards further, if you're at my place, it'd be right in front of you, like right at the front door. You look straight 100 yards that way. Up a little further is where Uncle Mario lived with his family. Up there in that area. And it was kind of like you take a road to go all the way up there and you get there. Valerie told me a story, or I think it was Yolanda, I can't remember, my aunt. Anyway, she told me a story that one of the nights she woke up in the middle of the night because she felt like something was in the room with her. And she looked at the foot of her bed, and she's an old woman crouched down, just her eyes and like her head peeking above the bed. And she stared at her for like a good like minute and a half, and she didn't move, she didn't change, she didn't blink, she was just there. And Valerie's head rationally thinking somebody broke in the house, someone staring at me like that. What if it's a ghost? But that was kind of her background thought. She thought that somebody's in the house. She didn't even ask it anything or even like try to say who it was. What she did is she threw her blanket on this thing, right? As she ran. She says as she was running out of the room, she looked, the blanket was on top of it, and it looked like someone was underneath it.
Oh my God.
Right?
Yeah.
Screaming, crying, stuff like that. My Uncle Mario thought someone broke in the house, so he busts in the room. Right, all ready to kick someone's ass, and all they see is a blanket on the floor. No windows open, no doors unlocked. Everything was locked. Everything was put up the same way. Yeah. The only way they can associate is that she saw a ghost. And that was impactful for her, because my Uncle Mars never really talked about having hauntings in the area where he was, but that just tells me there's 3 houses, essentially. Granted, my grandfather had a trailer and that he rebuilt and built on and made it look like a full-blown house. And he had that pink building next to it and stuff like that. But my dad's trailer, my uncle's Mario's trailer, and then that housing area with that, where my grandparents lived, 3 points had paranormal experiences on their own. Now, you think after me leaving and being gone from ranch, which I've not lived there for almost 12, 13 years now, you think with me gone, these experiences for anyone would stop. Ha ha, I say. I spoke to my dad recently, as of last week, and we were talking about different things. And he said, he asked me what I was up to. I talked about the investigations and stuff like that. And he was like, "Oh, mijo, let me tell you what happened to your brother." I'm not gonna do my dad's accent the entire time. He said that my youngest brother, when he was living there, he's not living there right now. When he was living there, as of like, he said maybe 4 or 5 months ago, 6 months ago. He forgot to tell me this, but he said that Elijah heard a demonic scream, as Elijah described it to him, which you can chalk up as him hearing it, or just him the one being like just hearing it out of nowhere, right? But no, my brother wasn't the only one to hear it. my aunt, who lives now in the buildings where me and my brothers used to live, heard it too.
Oh, man.
She heard it from the opposite end. So if you were pinpointing where this was coming from, it was coming from around the house that I grew up in. Because Elijah heard it the loudest, but my aunt heard it as well, coming from the ranch, or coming from our house area. My dad never heard it.
And I can preference with saying, I know I've said it like a couple times, episode, but Isaac, out of all his family, Isaac is the most probably into the paranormal. Everybody else is pretty much like, I've got to have some concrete evidence to see something. You know what I mean? So the fact that these people have experienced and like have said like, yeah, I experienced this. It's got to be some legitness to it. It's not like made up because they wouldn't. They have to have something concrete. You know what I'm saying? So, anyways, I just want to say that from like technically I would be in like an insider's perspective, but like from somebody that knows these people. Which
the stories I've told from the ranch to other people I've met and talked to, from other paranormal investigators, from other psychics, they all come with the same conclusion. They want to investigate that place.
Yeah.
Right? Tough shit. Because I'm getting to it first. Because granted, I didn't have my ability I have now then. Megan only ever came to the ranch twice.
Oh, and I got a couple stories for that too. I could tell you psychic vibes from it.
But you were there only a short time, and at that time, you weren't as strong as you are now.
No, nowhere near.
So, it's not like we could know what was going on or do anything about it. It's to the extent that we know now, anyway.
Yeah.
Hence why when we go back in October, it's going to be a whole other ballgame.
I know, like, when I went there, like, I didn't like it. Like, you could chalk it up as, like, maybe I was just nervous being around Isaac's family, like, meeting them for the first time. I think I was only ever there, like, 5 or 6 times.
Yeah.
There was one time, though, that he was staying over at my house, and he was like, hey, I gotta go get a change of clothes. Do you want to go with me? And I was like, yeah, but I didn't feel like getting out. So I was like, I'll just stay in the car.
Yeah, never stay in the car.
Yeah, don't stay in the car. It's not a pleasant feel. Like, I almost feel like setting it up when we're there, I guess for me to, it wouldn't be you, but for me to stay in the car. One of the things that when we go there, I think, at least I want to try is different experiments to kind of, that coincide with kind of how the stories went. The one time that I did go there and I was staying in the car, there was a feeling, like I didn't actually see anything. I didn't experience like a full-blown like paranormal experience. But I got an overwhelming feeling of just like, what did I do? I was debating whether to stay in the car or go run to where you were. Like, I did not know. So literally I hid under my jacket until you came back. And it was a good like 10 minutes. So I was like terrified. I don't know what it is about the ranch. It gives me the same kind of vibes. It's big balls to fill, but I think that's that saying. If not, then that sounds stupid.
Big shoes to fill. Big balls to fill? What the hell?
Oh, okay.
Big shoes to fill. Megan's gonna die of laughter over here.
Okay, guys. I've been up since 3 a.m. Anyways.
Big shoes to fill.
Big shoes to fill.
In comparison to what?
I think it's similar to Skinwalker Ranch. I was just about to say, like, I don't even think there's skinwalkers there, though. But I wouldn't be...
No.
I wouldn't be...
I didn't... Well, now that you bring that up, I think it's the last story I want to tell. Amongst the others, because we could take the next 2 hours just me telling everything that's ever happened, right? I haven't barely scratched the surface, but you brought up the whole idea of Skinwalker Ranch. And there were nowhere for alien sightings, cattle mutilation. Granted, my grandfather had cattle, but like 3 cows. That was it. And he only had it later in his retirement and stuff like that, his age. I think I was in my 20s. I was living up in the pink house at the time he started getting cows and stuff. Alien sightings, ghost sightings, stuff like that, hauntings, or other things. Now, one of the other things that we experienced was a possible cryptid. And I say this because in my time of living there on that ranch, like I said, from elementary to I graduated high school, even a couple of years after, until I was 25 or 26, we actually moved here where we're at now. Crazy shit, right? Lived there. Never heard this kind of animal before. if it even was an animal. One of the summers, I think I was 11. No, I was either 13 or I was 9. Because a period of time where we were in Tank for a couple of years, we lived in California. But this is why we were there. We started hearing, it's like the sun setting down. It was that kind of time of day. We started hearing what sounded like screaming of an animal and dying in pain off in the distance, about a good mile away. It was so fucking loud. And I was asking my mom, what is that? She, oh, it's probably a wounded animal or something. It kept getting closer to the house, minute by minute. And then within an hour of time, it was where it was, almost next to the house. So loud, I could see the glass vibrating on our window, to a point where my mom yelled at my dad to go get rid of whatever that is. To me, what it sounded like, because it was so high pitch of a scream, I haven't heard like a wounded dog sound like that, or a coyote, or any other animal. You would have sounded to me in my young little brain, like after watching Jurassic Park, it sounded like a pterodactyl, right? Like a dinosaur, like a high pitched screaming of a dinosaur, right? I remember my dad went out to his truck or in his area around the garage area, assuming to get a gun. This is Texas, everybody's got one. And I remember I opened the back door where this thing was coming from, right? Because behind our house, the back door area, there was of course the fence line where our trailer was maybe less than 10 yards away from the fence line, and there was just woods, right? Woods that went on for about a good several acres or so. And I was looking to see if I could see what it was, screaming out there in the woods. And all I remember looking out there and seeing nothing because it was about dark. And I hear, bow, 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 in the direction where this thing was coming from. My dad had I think he had a 44 Magnum. And he was just firing all 6 rounds in the direction where it was. That scared me more than what was going on because it was out of nowhere, right? And all I hear, mind you, the door's open. I'm staring out in that direction. I don't see anything. I hear running away. The thing instantly stops screaming. And it runs away. I don't know if my dad hit it or it just got scared because of the gunfire. But when it was running away, I never heard anything sound like this. It almost sounded like it had very long feet. Because it was like a slap, rush, and then like a boom, slap. Like a heel, like a doom, slap, doom, slap. Like it was like running like that. Like the heel hit, and then maybe 1 second later you hear the foot hit. Like the ball of the feet slap against the ground. Almost like a rabbit's foot. How rabbit's feet are really long, but imagine like a giant size version, right? Running on 2 legs. Doom, slap, doom, slap, doom, slap, doom, slap. Like it was a really weird. Like I've never heard anything run like that before or sound like that running through the leaves. And then the next morning, me and my brother went out to see if we could see anything, right? Any footprints or blood or something. We were kids in the country. We had nothing else to do, all right? And we're poor, so we had like one video game system with like 4 games. We played through them already, all right? And really, people were like, why would you go out there? We had nothing else to do. We were bored, right? We went out there looking through the tree lines, and we saw a few scrape marks of my dad's bullets hit through the trees, like bullet holes, and then where the bullets scraped against the trees. Didn't find any footprints, mind you, but we saw the path it ran because the leaves were torn up in that direction of where it was running, and it ran into the woods and made a turn left into the deeper part of the woods where it went up into the hill. And we never heard that thing again. But yeah, it just kept getting louder and closer, louder and closer, louder and closer to us, like right next to the house. And then it took my dad just firing 6 shots in the direction wherever it was. He didn't care about hitting anybody because there's no one out there. No one lived in the area. So you could fire a bullet and it would never hit anybody. So that's, if you want another idea comparison to Skinwalker Ranch, the thing is, no one knows about this shit because no one ever reported it. None of my family members, they ignore most of this. They grew up very Catholic, so their disbelief into the paranormal was very high. Even though majority of stuff I experienced myself, along with my brothers, I don't think my sister so much. Then again, she probably just ignored everything, or she never told me any stories. My dad experienced a couple of things. I was seeing a shadow figure in the hallway of where my brother's rooms were in the house, but he was in the house by himself. And he thought someone broke in. He just looked down the hallway, blinked really hard, and it was gone. But there was a shadow figure standing in the hallway. So my dad's even seen things. He chalks up to him dreaming or being, I don't know, mijo, I was barely awake. I don't know. Every impression I do, my dad exactly how he sounds.
Yeah.
But what I want to know now is that you were doing some research on the town that I grew up in and some of the correlations to what might be behind why the ranch is haunted you found, amongst other things that is in our town.
I guess just to give you guys just a little bit of history on Blanco itself, because obviously history plays a part with the paranormal. So kind of understanding that whole land. So like Isaac said, Blanco is a small town. It was founded in 1853 when a group of German settlers arrived in the area. And if you remember the Spring Branch episode, that was also mentioned. During the Civil War, Blanco was occupied by Confederate troops who used the town's courthouse, where we got married, as a hospital, which I did not know.
Nor did I.
Yeah.
The most famous thing about that courthouse is a scene from True Grit, the one with Jeff Bridges in it, was filmed there. The courthouse scene was filmed in that courthouse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So after the war, the town slowly began to recover, and by the late 1800s, it was thriving. They did have an arrival of a railroad that boosted the town itself. Some more people were making their way to Blanco versus before. And Blanco did have, like, throughout the years, some murders that occurred. I don't think anywhere near your ranch, but there was a couple feuds between families, like the typical, like, and that's the thing to understand too, is like a lot of that area is, because I think right next to you, the research that I did, I reached out to, I guess what you would call it, like the archives, the county, like what the land is. And they have not reached back out to me yet, but I want to figure out like what exactly your land was used for, or like what the history on the land was. There is a bunch of cattle ranches near your area. So yeah, so there was local, apparently deadly feuds between families in the early 1900s. There was a railroad that kind of brought more residents in, and then like the ranch areas and stuff like that also brought more people. The thing that I found super interesting was the urban legends that kind of popped up. I literally looked on Facebook posts, I literally looked on Reddit forums, I looked on different things to find some of these legends, and like I said, they're urban legends, so... Which
some I've never heard before.
Yeah. So one of the things that I was telling Isaac, for whatever reason, and I didn't even know the story beforehand, but I keep telling him about the Blanco River, because some of it actually, isn't that at the beginning part of your ranch area? Doesn't that flow in the Blanco River?
On the opposite side.
Yeah. And every time I would pass that, I would get like just, I don't know, a weird vibe. But apparently there's an urban legend called the Ghost of the Blanco River, which is apparently a young girl drowned in the Blanco River many years ago, and her ghost still haunts the area. Some people claim to have seen her ghostly figure or heard her cries for help. So to go more in depth, the legend basically tells, like I said, the ghostly apparition of a young girl who drowned in the river many years ago. The girl's ghost can be seen near the river, and some people have reported her voice calling out for help. The girl drowned in the river while trying to save her younger sibling who had fallen into the water. Despite her efforts, she was unable to save her sibling or herself, and both drowned. The legend suggests that the girl's spirit remains near the river, and some visitors to the area have reported seeing and hearing paranormal activity around that legend. So that's the thing, is like the Blanco River is huge.
Yeah.
So pinpointing where would be interesting, and a lot of the people, they didn't like that even told stories about it, didn't really pinpoint like where they did. But I find that interesting because I always, like, going into your ranch, I would always pay attention to that river for whatever reason. I would pay attention to a lot of things because I would just get a funky vibe. But
now, what's interesting about getting to my ranch is that there's only two roads that get to the area where I am, other than probably off roads and somebody's ranch and stuff like that. But it's almost, strangely enough, like an island. There's water on both sides entryways. So you have to cross two different rivers in order to get to my ranch. And the other side's all hill, right? Not mountain, hill. Pretty tall hills, but still hills altogether. So you have to have an off-road vehicle to even make it through. So if there's a flood, one bridge is covered with water, you can't get past it. And the other one is a low bridge. Oh yeah, you're definitely getting past that. So I remember one time it rained really bad in Blanco, and both those roads were flooded. My brother was trapped at the house for like a week because he couldn't leave because the waters were that high. But that river, Blanco River, is the one that runs over the bridge.
So another one, this is the one that I find most interesting, the Blanco Witch. So some locals claim that a witch once lived in the hills outside of Blanco and practiced dark magic. It is said that her ghost still haunts the area and that strange things happen to those who venture too close to her.
That is what I meant by possibilities of why the area where I live is haunted. So could she possibly be the witch that lived in the house that burned down? Now, I once, I think in my 20s, wanted to go see what was there, right? The building was still there. And it was during the day. And I remember I jumped over the fence and I made my way over there just to see what it was. And the building that was burned down looked like an old school building. Like it used to be an old school building. The thing is, though, the way it was built is very long, one story, right?
It's still there.
Windows on the I don't know if it's still there or not. It probably got demolished because people now bought that area of land where it is. And I'm pretty sure they just got rid of it. It's an old dilapidated piece of building. So they ain't worth it. It was burned up when I saw it. But the fact that I say school buildings had windows all along the sides of the building, like a school building, right? But it had open doors. So could it have been someone's house? Could it have been something else? But it was too modernized, like maybe the 50s, to be something that was made a long time ago. Now, I didn't ever get what year the Blanco Witch was from, but I wouldn't put it past it. She might have lived somewhere near where my grandfather bought the property of land where now my father lives.
Yeah, and that's why, like,
It's a possible theorized explanation of why, but until you say we investigate, we're never going to know 100%.
Yeah, those were the main legends that were talked about. Of course, there's some places outside of Blanco, like the Devil's Backbone, which we've talked about before on the Spring Branch. That's actually between Spring Branch and Blanco, and Blanco courthouse apparently got some funky stuff going on. I wonder if we could get in.
Courthouse? Well, you could rent it.
I mean, we could get into it. Yeah. We actually got married there. I didn't experience anything crazy, though. Like,
well, you were more focused on
yeah.
a wedding versus anything paranormal.
Yeah. But it's a very beautiful building. We did, though, experience, I did. I've never seen that. And that, I'm not a fan of porcelain dolls. My grandma actually collects them. We actually have, 7 or 8 behind us right now. But with Isaac's ability, I don't get freaked out because his hands were charged. And I think there was one that charged your hand, but it wasn't anything crazy. But we were in one of the antique stores because my parents love antiquing for whatever reason. They're I don't know. They like hikes. They like being outdoors, and then they like antiques. Anyways, so we went into this antique store, and I don't like antique stores to begin with because it's an overwhelming just headache is what I get from it. It's just so much energy. Plus, obviously us just as humans, we get attached to items, so there's energy regardless. Anyways, so there was this doll I passed, and I kept looking at it. I was like, what the freak, this doll is I don't know, because I knew I had abilities, but I wasn't really focused on it. And so I was like, oh, okay, this doll, whatever. And so I touched it, and then I just left it alone. And it moved. I turned around, and it was in a different direction. I was like, nah, no way, no way. And so I called you over, and I was like, Isaac, look at this doll. So you were like, whatever, it's not, whatever. And so we looked away, and it moved position again. No, we're right there. There's no way for it to shift position. It was propped up on the shelf. And then I remember we were looking at it, and the leg of the doll started swinging. No fans, no nothing. It was just swinging.
Now, that antique store is it's in the square around the courthouse. This is a perfect strip mall, but granted, it's small town strip mall, so it's not like that. I think a dental place, insurance place, a restaurant, and that antique shop. So that's around the area with the courthouse. So granted, if that courthouse was used as a hospital, not everyone and their dog can fit in there. So I'm granted they probably had some triage outbuildings out surrounding the courthouse where someone could have died in that area.
And I think it's important to also note that, like, especially Spring Branch on, like, that whole area was very heavy with a bunch of wars over time.
Mexican-American War, Revolutionary War,
Yeah.
Civil War.
And then you also have, the pushing of Native American tribes. And in Spring Branch in particular, like, they had a lot of ceremonial areas in that area. A lot of that stuff got desecrated and moved out, and they got pushed away. So I'm sure Blanco at some point their land has seen, and that's why I've been trying to get a hold of the archive people, because I'm curious to know what that land was. Because I know, like, over here they can actually trace the land back all the way to the 1700s, so we can actually, like, find out. I mean, you have to go search into the archives, but hopefully they message back, because I definitely want to put more of that into the episode. But, like, when we actually do the Halloween episode. But I think when we do the Halloween episode, I was talking to Isaac about this, and it's kind of up in the air. We have to actually go back and feel everything out. But one of the things I told him that I wanted to do in particular was, because we talked about, like, the actual episode won't be out till Halloween, like the actual YouTube video. And we'll probably do a follow-up kind of like podcast episode, like a huge haunted update. But we're going to do a live while we're there. And I told him that I, want one basically live to follow us around, but I want another live, whether it's on Shadow Walker or Hidden in the Shadows, of the phone being left, I guess maybe even at the open field, like pointed towards the open field and just left there. So you guys would be like, we wouldn't even be around, like, if we're walking around another part of the property. We basically leave.
So we get a bunch of messages. There's something in there. There's something in there. We saw it.
Yeah, yeah. So, but I don't know. I've been getting that. I've gotten it in a dream, and I've gotten it in multiple visions. So for whatever reason, I don't know, I'm getting told to do that. So that's one thing. And like I said, probably trying to not lure things out.
I just remembered.
Yeah.
This is a ghost story from inside Blanco, from someone's experience. Remember when I was telling Rob? This happened to Rob.
Oh.
Right.
Okay.
Another thing happened to him. I remember some of the stuff that happened to Ranch, and he told me the only time he ever saw a ghost. Like, clearly, right? He shared a backyard with his neighbor. So the back of his house and the back of his neighbor that was across from him, like the other side of the street, they shared a backyard together. So butt to butt, essentially, they shared in the yard in the middle. And there's a tree, and there's a picnic table underneath the tree that he knew the family, he knew the people who lived there, the couple, that they would go out and smoke and stuff like that. So one night he got home late, 11 o'clock at night, and he was taking the tools out of his truck, and he was putting it in his shed in the back, and he noticed somebody sitting in a white shirt sitting at the table. And he calls out to the guy's name. I don't remember the guy's name. I think it's Pete or something. He's like, "Hey, Pete, what are you doing out here this late? You're never out here this late, right?" You remember seeing that. And you see that white shirt just, like, mist away, like it evaporates. And he looks at it and goes, and he says, he runs inside. Dang. He put his tools up real quick and got inside the house. He's like, what the hell? And because he's like, he clearly saw someone sitting there enough that he thought it was his neighbor just sitting out there. But it was late. It's like, you never out here this late. What are you doing this late? And I was like, dissipate.
Dang. Yeah.
So Blanco, other than what's happened in my ranch.
Yeah, I bet you we can go
to investigate. We're better off just investigating around the building.
I'm sure you could probably stay in the square, right?
Yeah, there's no reason why you wouldn't be in the square.
He makes fun of me because I always get nervous, like, oh my god, is the cops gonna get called on us every time we like.
I just say my last name, they're gonna be like, oh, you're Felix's son or Gustavo's son or like that. So
yeah, I don't know.
My family last name holds merit in that town.
Yeah. So, but the ranch is definitely gonna be. We should have some really good equipment by then. So
look forward to that in October. I know it's far away, but we'll keep promoting it the time we get close to going.
It's probably gonna come quicker than we anticipate. So,
but I think that wraps us up. Next week is my idea, which I've heard on several different podcasts talking about it. And now at the rise of current technologies, it makes sense to kind of talk about it. Not saying it hasn't been talked about before, but it's becoming more of a prominent thing during these days, especially this year. I want to talk next week about AI, right? Artificial intelligence, stuff like that, because right now it's being used a lot by different people. And we're using it right now for information, for someone to research stuff for us and stuff like that, or even write our papers for us. And this is just the beginning stages of what AI can do for us. There's so much more that has potential of doing. But a question that was asked, and I'll give the answer in the episode next week. Can AI, at its full integrated technology in its existence, can AI have a soul? And that's a question most people ask. Like, what do these, if an AI gains a personal intelligence, have its own personality, its own mindset, its own conscious thinking, does it have a soul? That got me thinking. But we'll talk about that next week. But as always, guys, you can catch our social medias at Hidden in the Shadows Podcast on Instagram, Hidden the Shadows 6 on Twitter, Hidden in the Shadows Pod 2.
Oh.
What is it?
Hidden in the Shadows Podcast 2.
Hidden in the Shadows Podcast 2 on TikTok. Our links to all our social media and all ways you can listen to us at hiddenshadowspodcast.com. But as always, we'll catch your weirdos in the next one.
Yeah.